Well, hello everybody. It's David Barry, your host for Leaving California Freedom. And boy, we have a really special. This is episode 37, and today it's you notice that we don't have a guest. Our special guest is my co-host, Terry Gilliam, and we're going to be doing an interview to find out everything you wanted to know about Terry Gilliam and then some. So Terry, how are you?
Oh, I'm great, David. Hey, is today a glasses day? Are we wearing glasses during our
Yes, I
meeting today?
figured when I do interviews, I want to have my glasses on.
The
Maybe
thing about glasses is that the light bar tends to get into the light. So I
yeah, that's true. Maybe I can read without
I can see a
my
whole lot better
glasses.
without them up close anyway. I need them for distance. So
Thank you for the compliment. So again, we're doing a we're doing an interview with Terry Gilliam, our founder. There's a lot of stuff that I know, and there's some things that I don't know. So for those of you that are curious how this whole thing got started, and what is Terry's vision for what we're trying to accomplish with the Leaving California groups that have grown to almost 300,000 people, let's go ahead and get started. So Terry, I guess I'm just going to ask you some general questions. We've talked about this before, but we'll get it all out there today. And maybe people, if they understand you, they can understand your vision. And then maybe that'll help them with their vision of getting out of California. So where were you born?
I was born about 2 miles from where I'm sitting right now in Winter Park, Florida. I was born in the 50s in this beautiful state, back before air conditioning was anything in Florida. In fact, the hospital I was born in didn't have air conditioning, which is crazy. I can still remember my brother, my youngest brother was born in 1964, and I can still remember going up to the window where my mom's room was after she delivered him, and the window was up and there was a screen there. And we're talking March, although it gets pretty warm here in March, but imagine delivering a baby in August in a hospital in Florida with no air conditioning.
Cannot. And it's interesting because Terry and I met a little over 3 years ago, and we become good friends and business partners. And some of this stuff I do know, and some of the stuff maybe that he'll share today I don't know. But one of the things that I've always learned about you, and we've shared a lot of stories about our life, and you are a little older than me, but not that much older. And so whenever you talk about Florida, and for the listening audience, I was born in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I now live in Las Vegas, and I am the premier realtor for the group. But when you talk about Florida, you always seem to say that it was a really good experience. You loved everything about Florida, and you even told me some stories about Disney World. So what was it like as a kid, and what was that Disney World experience like?
Well, my dad worked for the power company as a manager, so they moved us around the state. So we moved from Winter Park, here where I am now, to St. Petersburg in 1965, where I started first grade. And that house had air conditioning, but crazy, the school didn't. So,
Yeah.
in fact, my school didn't have air conditioning till I got to the 10th grade when we moved back to Winter Park. But it was great. Florida was very uncrowded back then. This is before Disney, of course. So Florida was not this, the popular, crazy, busy place that it is now. And I think we're just getting started because they're building freeways like crazy. I was just on the turnpike Saturday, and they had expanded it from 2 to 4 lanes, like over a 2-year period. So the nice thing about Florida versus California, look at I-5 that goes from the Central Valley all the way down to Los Angeles. As far as I know, that's still mostly 2 lanes the whole way because we don't want cars on the road, no cars.
Yeah.
So hence on the weekends, you are backed up for miles and miles and miles because there's not enough roads. Versus Florida, where they actually build freeways where there's a need. So anyway, it was great growing up in Florida. We lived in a small town after St. Petersburg called Lake Placid, Florida, south of Sebring, down towards Lake Okeechobee. That was the down near the Everglades. Great thing about that was alligators really weren't a big thing. They'd been hunted to almost extinction back in the early 1900s. So we had an alligator every once in a while. But, our dog could swim in the lake, no problem. But, and that was great because we water skied. Oh my gosh, my parents had us live right on a beautiful lake. We water skied 9 months out of the year. In fact, I got new skis for Christmas one day. So Christmas Day, I'm out water skiing on our lake. Now, it was cold. I think it was about 48 degrees or something like that. But
Yeah.
So
I
it
could
was
see
great.
that. Terry was definitely an adventure person. And, me growing up in Fort Lauderdale as a kid, going to the beach all the time, what I remember is Fort Lauderdale was the place. That was where every college kid went to for spring break. And they ended up shutting that down in the late 80s.
They
But
did.
I love the beach. I love the ocean. I do like to have the mountains, so I like being in Las Vegas a little bit more than Florida. But do you remember anything negative? Like, what's the one thing as a kid or as a teenager that you can remember? Was there anything that was negative, or you thought, I'm not sure about this?
Well, not having air conditioning was tough. And there were nights trying to sleep where it was literally 90 degrees outside, and which means it was probably over 100 inside.
Yeah.
With no air movement, air just perfectly still. Of course, that's changed completely, but that was tough as a kid. And I really think that's why in the South, people weren't as quick because, man, I remember being in school just being exhausted because I hadn't slept the night before. And I'm talking about weeks after weeks after
Yeah.
weeks. As you get closer to the summer, it just gets hotter and hotter. And then the fall isn't that much better until you start getting into, and then we had a lot more mosquitoes back then and roaches back then.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm sorry for those who hate roaches. I hate roaches. I don't like them. I've probably only seen 10 in the 3 years since I've been back because modern pest control has really gotten a handle on it. But I remember every restaurant I worked in had roaches, every, Disney World, everywhere you went there, because it was just natural. You did everything you could. But again, modern pest control has really eliminated mosquitoes and roaches for the most part. But it's been replaced by alligators in the lakes now. So you have to worry about alligators.
Well, Terry,
because they're protected.
You had mentioned to me many times, and you've told me some stories about working at Disney World and how Disney World and Disney itself has really kind of flipped on its head. But it must have been really cool to work in Disney and be a part of the Disney culture back then. And I guess, for those of you that don't know, Terry has a pretty strong background in restaurants and running the restaurants and stuff. So talk a little about Disney and a little bit about your transition to working in the restaurant business.
Well, I started at Disney in Christmas 1975. So this was 4 years after Disney opened. It's funny, it seemed like it had been open forever at that point, but 4 years is nothing. I started working there at Tomorrowland Terrace. In fact, the very first assistant manager that I worked with in 1975 is still a very good friend of mine today. She's an awesome person, retired from Disney. I worked there from opening day until she retired, and just a wonderful person that I loved working with. But I worked at Tomorrowland Terrace, worked on the largest hamburger machine in the world. It was the Nico, I want to say, I think it was the 3,000. I think it can make 3,000 hamburgers an hour.
Wow.
3,000. I mean, I think about that. That's just incredible. And we would just pump those hamburgers out and serve them, and there'd be lines out the door, and it was crazy. But there was no better place on the planet to start back then. I would never let my son work there now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
You're gonna be working around guys wearing dresses now. But the thing that Disney taught me at a very early age is there's always a better way to improve what you're doing. And that was instilled in me from an early age. And the thing they really encouraged was, hey, you, Mr. Line Cook, if you can do it better, tell us. We'll try it. And it was just such a great place to work for that. And the cleanliness that goes on out there, what you see out in the front area with all the custodian stuff, that goes on in the back area too, man. They wanted these kitchens spotless like the military almost. And so it was a great place to really learn how to work fast, efficiently, clean, sanitary. They did a great job of instilling all of that in me. And I was going to be a chemical engineering major at University of Florida. And I just loved working at Disney so much that I changed my major, changed my college to Florida State, where I got a hotel restaurant degree. And then I went back and managed for Disney starting in around 1980.
Well, you said Disney was telling you to have a better way. That doesn't sound like what California does. That doesn't seem like that. So we're kind of transitioning into this life of Terry Gilliam, our founder and the creator of Life After California and Leaving California. So here we are.
Well, hey, David,
Yes.
on that note, Disney actually has adopted the California way, because every time you turn around, Disney's raising prices, just like California's raising taxes.
Yeah,
So that's their answer to everything. Oh, we just need to raise prices.
right.
So Disney has acclimated to the California way when it comes to costing you a lot more money.
Well, Terry, the way I understand your story is there's a tie-in from working at Disney in the food business to actually leaving Florida and going as far west as you can. And maybe you could share that story. How did you end up being in California?
Sure. So I would have worked at Disney the rest of my life. They just didn't pay, and they didn't have to, because there were 1,000 people trying to get my job as soon as I left. I was very happy working there as an employee or cast member, but they just didn't pay. I was never going to be able to buy a house anytime soon, or start a family, anything like that. So I took a job for a year in Connecticut. Really didn't think much of Connecticut, and then moved to Texas. Had a job offer in Texas, and that's where I joined with Chili's restaurants, when Chili's was still a very small company. They only had, this was 1985, they only had like 30 restaurants across the country, which was only Florida, Texas, and California for the most part. And then after about a year in Texas, they said, "Hey, we're really starting to expand California. We want to send you out there." I was single, no ties. I said, "Send me." So they sent me to Fremont, California, and from there, that was my journey starting in California, 1986, February 1986, starting my 35-year journey through California. So that's how that got started.
Well, Terry, we've shared many stories on our podcast every week, and we've shared stories of people that have lived there for 60 years, 70 years, and now they're leaving. They say they can't stay anymore. They can't afford it, and they have to leave California. And I lived in California real briefly when I was a child. I lived in Torrance in the LA area. I went to school a little bit, and then we only stayed for maybe a year. And then I ended up being in Las Vegas pretty much my entire life. But the stories that you've shared with me about California in the early days, how does California go from being one of the greatest places? I mean, you always spoke highly of California in the 80s and 90s, and then just to going to where it's at today. And what happened?
Well, it's always been a little bit on the progressive side, and it just went to where it's a lot on the progressive side. I've said this many times, but when I moved from Texas to California, the cost of gasoline was less in California than it was in Texas. Mm-hmm. Now, everything else was higher. Rent was pretty much double in California what it was in Texas for not as nice of a place.
Right.
Then I went from a place with no state income tax to a state income tax. In fact, that was the first place out of the 4 states I'd lived in. That was the first state I lived in where I had a state income tax. So that the cost of living was significantly higher in California. But then here comes the regulations. I don't have to tell anybody this who doesn't already know it. They started demonizing cars, demonizing growth, demonizing fossil fuels, demonizing producers. Everything that California has become has just been almost a weekly progression. And I saw this many years ago. Before Gray Davis was governor, California still had a Republican governor, still had some checks and balances. And then as soon as Gray Davis got in, and I'll include Arnold Schwarzenegger in that. Arnold Schwarzenegger was no conservative by any means. He tried to change things, and as soon as he failed at that, he said, "Okay, I'm a liberal now," is basically what he said. And they just continued this progression left. We had the 3 strikes law back then in the 90s where career criminals got put in jail for a very long time because they were career criminals. And now we're told that it's not their fault. It's someone else's fault. And so now there's no bail laws, and there's they've completely decriminalized so many different laws to where you don't get put in jail anymore and all this other stuff. That's just
so when you speak of you're basically saying that you saw it coming. You knew that things were going to turn bad. You didn't think that they would ever turn this bad. But did you have some good years? Would you say that you had 5 or 10 really good years in California, or was it always heading towards this direction of, oh boy, I don't know what's going on here?
Well, I mean, I sold copiers during the .com days. So public companies would go public overnight and have hundreds of millions of dollars, and they would say, "Okay, we're going to take this whole office building," and I was selling copiers and faxes and things like that. and they say, Terry, we need to fill up this building with copiers and faxes. And then 2 years later, they said, Terry, we need to give all these copiers and faxes back because we're out of business.
Oh, jeez. Wow.
Fortunately, I wasn't the one who financed them, but that was a challenging time. And then in the early days of, I went into the mortgage business in 2002, and really, we had several good years then too. But that was because of the subprime lending, option arms, that creative financing that came back. And then, we went through the same thing in 2008, 2009. So yeah, those were good years.
Well, so let's talk about, so tell me what happened. So here we are in California, you're living your life. What year do you decide to leave when you realize you have to leave? And then what year did you leave? And did you look around and look at different places in the past, or did you know that you were going to go back and be with your family in Florida?
Well, I didn't know. I was married at the time, and my wife was a native Californian, and she really did not want to leave. Now, at the time. Now we were raising our two boys, too. Our two boys were born and raised in the same house there in the East Bay, and we had a great house in a great neighborhood. Loved that. Went to a great church, and so we were, from that level, we were content. But I just kept seeing every year the cost of living just going sky high in California compared to what you were getting as far as increased in income. And that's really when I started getting dissatisfied. Was the California legislature just looked at taxpayers as ATMs. They're like, oh, we just need more money. Oh, you're not paying your fair share. Half your income is not your fair share. You need to give us more than half your income. Mm-hmm. And then the regulations that came on top of that. And I considered Prescott, Arizona. My wife would have considered Prescott, Arizona. We were going to make a trip out there. And really what happened was COVID changed everything. And at that point, my wife and I split, and as soon as we split, I said, well, I'm moving back to Florida. I'm getting the heck out of here. And I had started this group, Leaving California, the first group in 2018, knowing that I was not the only person who was not happy. I was working in technology in 2018, and I'm working around all these people who absolutely loved everything that California was doing, didn't care if they raised taxes, didn't care, oh, let's double the gasoline tax because people shouldn't be driving. I'm like, well, how the heck did you get to work today? You drove here in a gas-powered car. Yeah. And, they're all switching over to electric, and it's just, so anyway, I didn't have many friends who were conservative like I was, but knowing that California was really starting to fall apart, and then they passed that law back, many years ago, well, probably 7, 8 years ago, that said, decriminalized everything. Oh, you can steal $950 and it's just a ticket, and we're going to let all these people out of jail. And then when COVID happened, they let tens of thousands of people out of jail. God forbid they get COVID.
Well, you and I talk about this every week, and a lot of our members, they wait. And, we always say the same thing on every show. We say that every member that we've ever spoke to about leaving just says they wish they would have left sooner. In your experience, had it been years when you had pretty much decided that you needed to get out of California, or did COVID happen and then you just left several months later, or how did that go down?
Well, COVID really accelerated all of the negativity, all the negative things that were happening in California. Florida very quickly shut down and then opened right back up again. The schools, in many cases, stayed open or opened quickly again. Businesses were not closing. California destroyed tens of thousands of small businesses. The barber shop that I used to go to, all the small stores that I would go to, all of them were shut down. But guess what was open? Walmart, Sam's Club, Home Depot. All of those stores stayed open. Yeah. But the little guy had to shut down, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. They're killing the small businesses in California. They're killing our kids because my son stayed home for a year and a half. Mm-hmm. They shut the schools down for a while, and then they do online teaching 2.5 hours a day for 6 classes for a whole school year. My son didn't learn a darn thing.
My daughter was the same way, same situation. Her freshman year, she did it on a computer. It was ridiculous. Totally agree. All right, well, let's move on to happier days and more fun topics. So here you are, you leave California, you come back, you're with your family, and you're back, you see some old friends, and at what point do you decide, I think I'm going to make this Facebook group? How did that all come about?
Well, I started both of them in California. So leaving California, again, I knew I wasn't the only person. I can still picture myself sitting at my desk saying, I think I should start a group called Leaving California. I can't be the only person who is just disagrees with everything the legislature is doing, disagrees with my local government. This whole climate change stuff. I'm sorry. The North America used to have 2-mile thick sheet of ice on it. How many SUVs ruined that and turned it into what it is today? None. The climate changes whether there's people on the planet or not. I'm sorry. Every time it's 1 degree hotter than it was the day before. This is a climate change. We're all going to die. In fact, I'll tell you this. I had a guy who was a multi-millionaire in 2007. I was in real estate. I was working with some real estate investors. He lived in San Jose, and he said, in 2 years, San Jose is going to be waterfront because the ocean, all the glaciers are melting. It's going to be waterfront. Yeah. And in my head, I'm like, dude, you made millions of dollars in technology, and you don't know that that's just a bunch of baloney?
Right.
Oh my gosh. So anyway, I feel bad because there's so much on that side that has just indoctrinated people to think that the planet's going to end any day now, and fossil fuels has ruined the planet. So as California just kept imposing more and more regulations and saying, electric cars only can be sold in 2035 in California. Give me a break. That's, okay, David, you rented a Tesla when you came to visit me here in Florida. Tell me about the experience of charging that Tesla. Go ahead. Tell us that story.
Unfortunately, I couldn't find a charger. I drove for almost 45 minutes, and the one place that had it, they were closed that day, and you weren't able to charge it. So,
how many gas stations did you pass trying to find that charging station?
About 15 or 18 of them.
Yeah, but come on, we're not ready. We're not ready. And I don't care if electric cars are the thing in the future, but they're not right now. And so mandating all this stuff is just going to ruin the economy, ruin the, and not to mention how they mine that stuff. How about all the little kids who have to go mine all those materials, those dangerous materials?
Yeah.
That doesn't bother people.
Well, by the way, we have our Money Matter. For those of you that haven't seen our Money Matter show with Monty Phelps, that show's really taken off, and we give some great advice. And one of the things we gave on our show today was stop listening to one media source. You don't want to just listen to one thing, and everything that the media tells you, it's not always necessarily true. So anyway, I knew that during our show today that Terry might get off on a tangent because he's extremely passionate, as you all can imagine, about helping people leave California as he did. And one of his favorite sayings, and he'll say it himself, is leaving California, welcome to America. And it is so true. But let's try to stay on topic. I didn't mean to get you off on a tangent. So you're creating this group. You're thinking, well, maybe I'll put 100 people together, a couple hundred people. And so how does it evolve to what it is today? And how do you help so many people from California go and find other cities and move to have welcome to America living?
Well, just to back up a little bit, in 2020, I kept seeing people on the Leaving California group who'd left, and we're talking about their success stories. And so that's when I decided, this is before COVID. It wasn't long before, but it was, because I didn't know COVID was coming. But I started hearing from people, and so I said, well, I'm going to start a second group called Life After California and invite people to join that group too, so that Californians can hear from the people who have left and what their life is like from that. And really, it just started growing organically. I started posting in the Leaving California group. I started posting articles about businesses that had left, stories about people who had left, and it caught on. And really, what makes our groups awesome, I'd love to take credit for it, but I don't. It's the members of the group. We have so many tens of thousands of members who have helped so many other tens of thousands of members figure out how to move, what route to drive when you're moving to X, what towns to check out in Tennessee and South Carolina. And really our members have just been spectacular in giving and helping others find a better life outside of California.
Well, what's crazy, and a lot of our members, some of you may be seeing Terry Gilliam for the first time. You may be hearing him for the first time, and you may have interacted with him on the site because he's always on there giving feedback. And he just got through doing a consultation with somebody that was thinking about leaving California, which he also does. And I do the same as well. But now Terry has become the face of leaving California, which is quite a big movement. And so, Terry, if you don't mind, maybe you could share some of the news outlets that have actually interviewed you, and maybe you could share what your favorite interview was, and with which entity, and how do you feel about being the face of leaving California on a national level?
Well, I got a face made for radio, so it's been a little bit of a surprise. But yeah, we've been in the New York Times, wrote about our groups. San Francisco Chronicle did on their SF Gate, and then really the Epoch Times has been my favorite. The CM at Karami has the California Insider channel. I think it's epochtimes.com now, California Insider, because YouTube kicked them off because. Unfortunately, they spoke the truth. YouTube doesn't like the truth being spoken,
Right.
except for this group. The YouTube doesn't mind us speaking the truth. Epoch Times was awesome. And then I started getting on things like Fox News, Fox Business Network. Funny, MSNBC's never called me, but I would probably not take that call anyway.
Right.
And then I've done several YouTube channels also. But Newsweek has written about us. Sacramento Bee. I've done several Fox affiliate interviews, one here in Orlando, Fresno, Los Angeles. So yeah, there's been a lot of places. California Globe, is it called? I think it is another place that writes about us occasionally. So yeah, it's been great. It's been great to educate people. And here's the other thing, David. Everybody assumes that people leaving California are, a Joy Behar or something, some ultra leftist communist who's who's like, oh my gosh, look at Florida, we got to change it. No, we're moving here because we like Florida. We're moving here because we like the way they pass laws here that benefit the taxpayer. What a concept. California punishes the taxpayer. Florida embraces the taxpayer and knows that they work for the taxpayer. They are public servants. And Tennessee, same way. A lot of the southern states, including Texas, are there to help make life better for the taxpayer and families, and give them a life that is full of freedom. Let them keep as much money as they can of their own legally, and keep costs down that allows people to thrive. I mean, none of us want to live paycheck to paycheck. We all want to save money for our kids, for education and things like that, and that's what living outside of California allows you to do.
Well, this is so cool. I've learned a few things, and now I have to shift gears a little bit, because Terry Gilliam, and he never really signed up for this, but he is actually the face of leaving California. And now I wanted to ask you about your vision and what you think about the future, and what do you think is going to happen this year and years to come, and what is your vision for the groups?
Well, there are people who occasionally say, how come you don't stay and fight? Well, I stayed for 35 years, and for 30 years, my vote didn't count once. Nobody I voted for on local, state, or federal ever won, because I was in such a minority, especially in the Bay Area. My goal is to help people, as many people as possible who think the same way we do, leave California to live a better life somewhere else, but then to make certain the rest of the country doesn't go the way of California. There are certainly people on the federal level that want the rest of the United States to be just like California, where you don't have a middle class anymore. You only have the super wealthy, and you have the poor that are subsidized in everything they do. And that's not going to be in the United States of America. If you lose the middle class, you've lost this country. And that's my goal now, is to do everything we can to solidify the things that have made this country great in the rest of the country. I think California, people keep saying it's going to get down to where people will finally turn around, but I don't see it happening anytime soon, maybe not in my lifetime, to where people will say, oh my gosh, we've got to get rid of all these electronic car mandates and all this climate change stuff. In fact, those people are getting more frenzied. They're not getting less. And so I want to help people keep the freedoms that we have outside of California that the government wants to take away from us.
And Terry, I would, one of the reasons that this channel has been so successful and these groups have been so successful is it's all about stories. We have people on our podcast that have cried. We've had people that have celebrated their accomplishments of getting out of California, and it's all about stories. So as the founder, as our founder and director in chief of Leaving California, could you please share maybe one or two or three of your top stories of things that have happened with our members that really resonate with you?
Well, I think our Southern tour was a great example, David. We would have these receptions or have people who had left California, and 100% of them could not have been happier that they had left California. Of course, people miss the weather. Of course, they miss the beauty, the fact that you can be at the ocean in the morning and at Lake Tahoe or in the mountains in the evening in 20 feet of snow. Who wouldn't miss that? But they don't miss the crime. They don't miss the traffic. They don't miss the cost of living. They don't miss the schools that are indoctrinating their children instead of educating them. It was meeting all of those families who were just thrilled to be out of California. And as you said, almost 100% of them said, boy, I wish we'd left a long time ago, because this has just been the best thing we've ever done for us and our family and our financial future, not just their well-being physically and emotionally, but also financially. You know, some of these people are buying beautiful homes, many of them paying cash because they had equity in their homes in California. So they don't have the financial burden that they had in California, and you don't have to worry each night that what's the next stupid law they're going to pass that's going to decimate my finances or make us change our business plans or etc. So that's really what the beauty has been. It's just talking to so many people who've left and could not be happier.
Well, Terry, on behalf of all of our members and myself and everybody, you're relentless. And you're such you're so unselfish. You know, you just give. And you told me you were running late for this podcast because you were just on the phone talking to somebody that wanted to leave. And so you're a giver. And on behalf of all the members and everybody, we really, I'm speaking for them. And I've seen the posts, I've seen the thank yous, I've seen the gratitude, I've seen people holding up signs that left California, and all of those people that said thank you. On behalf of all of them, I'm going to personally say it to you. Thank you for everything you've done for all of the Leaving California people and for people that are thinking about leaving. You have made a big difference, and they are living Welcome to America lives. They're getting the American dream when they thought they couldn't buy a house. So many things have happened to so many families, and it's because of you. And I'd like to just say thank you on behalf of everybody. Keep doing what you're doing. I look forward to working side by side with you. We're going to keep building this group, and we're going to keep helping people that want to have a different life. So,
well, David, it's a pleasure doing this with you. I appreciate all of your help too. You're a great interviewer, and I really enjoyed our 2 weeks on the road, going to the 10 cities in 11 days, 10 towns. And so I appreciate all your help too. And really, because I grew up in a conservative Christian home in Florida, I knew what people were missing by living in California and that rat race that's out there. And that's really what has driven me to help people escape California. And by the way, if you're happy there, please stay. If you like high taxes, you like EVs everywhere, and I'm going to say it, those stupid Priuses, every other car is a dumb Prius that drives under the speed limit.
Yeah.
Oops, I probably shouldn't have said that. But if you like all that stuff, then please stay in California. The rest of the country would appreciate it, and let us live our lives the way we want to. That's why we have the freedoms out here that we do. And again, thanks, David. It's been great working with you. And I know you're going to be helping a lot of people move to Las Vegas and that area too.
Yeah, and again, I'm your host, David Berry. This is episode 37 of Leaving California Freedom. You can reach me at Lasvegas at davidberryrealtor.com. And you can message either myself or Terry, and we will help you. We'll point you in the right direction. We'll get you started to freedom. And we look forward to talking to you soon. Have a great week. We'll talk to you later.